Okay, can you folks see that? All right. Okay, so I really like the title, Gardening for Water Quality, because that's what our goal is with rain gardens. We're utilizing quite a few different features. We're using the landscape, the water that comes onto it, and then we're trying to improve local water quality. So, you know, Marie did a great job kind of setting this up, talking about stormwater and a lot of the considerations with it, because it's something that affects all of us. And, you know, we might think that, oh, I just have this small home, it doesn't contribute that much. But just with the average size home, we're going to go with 1,000 square foot home on an average size lot. And we're going to make our magical rainstorm come through and rain exactly 1 inch on this house. And so just the amount of water that's coming in runoff from the roof tap is about 900 gallons during this 1 inch storm. You add in your average size driveway, that's contributing an additional 500 gallons. You have a compacted yard where water doesn't really infiltrate well. That's a significant contribution with over 2,600 gallons. So altogether, just a 1 inch rainstorm on an average home can shed off about 4,000 gallons to our storm drain system. So if you think in the Cedar Valley area, that's close to 130,000 gallons of water just from your home. When you think about all the homes in our community, that really adds up to a lot of water. And then, you know, the other thing is where we're seeing climate drift and changing weather patterns here in the area. So we've had wetter years here recently, and Iowa specifically, we've kind of seen an increase in the average amount of rainfall anywhere from 6 to 8 inches. And there's projections that could increase. So the amount of water we're receiving in our area is kind of being affected by that. And that's when I get calls from homeowners who did not buy waterfront property, but are dealing with that in their backyard. There's a lot of water and not a lot of places to go. So that's when we come up with these wonderful solutions with things like rain gardens. And like I said, this is kind of trying to harken back to the native Iowa hydrology and how water used to have a chance to get into the ground, to infiltrate, to slow the system down. So a lot of what Maria was talking about is really what our goal is with rain gardens here. And so rain gardens themselves, you know, it's nothing complicated. It's really just trying to design a beneficial landscape feature. So these are strategically placed in the yards. You know, it's not just the bottom spot in your yard where all the water goes to. There's some considerations we'll go into more detail on, but really we're just trying to capture an amount of that stormwater coming off from the roof or the driveway or the sidewalk or the road, direct it to these rain gardens, give it a chance to temporarily pond there, you know, usually less than 24 hours. So that way that water can work its way into the ground. And rain gardens themselves, you know, there's a little bit of work into the design and installation, but then once they're established, it's not much more work than average landscaping. All right, so we've partnered with many residents here in the Cedar Valley to install rain gardens. And each one of these photos is from a different rain garden that we've installed over the years. And you can kind of see the vast differences between all of these. Some of these were done by professional landscaping companies. Some of these were installed by the homeowners themselves. Some of these only cost a couple $100 and a day's worth of labor, whereas some of these took, you know, multiple days with contractors getting these done. Some of these were very inexpensive, and some of these were more expensive. And each one of these fit the homeowner's need, what their goals were, what their landscape features were, but really they all kind of have the same defining features for a rain garden. We're directing water from the downspout, giving a chance to pond, work its way into the ground. We have pretty pretty flowers in it. So this is a nice infographic just to kind of show off how a rain garden works. We have our rain water coming down by precipitation. So water accumulates, goes downhill. So we try and intercept that water runoff and have it fill up our rain garden. We only want a portion of that water in the rain garden. We don't want to treat the whole storm or an excessive amount. Excessive water will run on down outside of the rain garden, but the water that stays within the rain garden and has a chance to pond in there, that's what is working its way through the soil profile. So it'll percolate and infiltrate down and can even help recharge groundwater. And here in the Cedar Valley, we rely on well water from deep aquifers. So giving that water a chance to recharge is important. And sometimes we have enhanced rain gardens designed. So we might include under drains or overflow options for those really heavy rainfall events. But then we have our wonderful native prairie plants in there that also help absorb the water, take it up, transpire it. So this is a much more functional system, like I said, akin to our native prairie Iowa heritage. So I'm really excited to announce that everything, if you only pay attention for one slide, this is the one to check out this evening. So yeah, wake up, take your coffee, take your notes here, because we've had a rain garden manual that was developed, I think in the late 90s, early 2000s, and has been a resource for homeowners, for conservationists like myself, and it's really just a one-step all-encompassing guide of how to do a rain garden, all the considerations, everything that I'm going to talk about this evening is pretty much included in this rain garden manual. Well, just last week, it was formally announced that we have the updated guide that just came out. You can go ahead and download it for free. I think for a short period, it's available to download also free through Amazon Kindle. So you can go ahead and get all the information you need if you go to that iowastormwater.org and go to the rainscaping and the rain garden, and you'll have the link to that. But like I said, it includes all the details I'm going to discuss this evening and go into more details. So some of the considerations with rain gardens, just like retail, property, and all that stuff, it's all about the location. We want to have these rain gardens included in an area that's going to try and help the water quality. We don't want it, like I said, that clear at the bottom or anything like that of your yard. We don't want it in the wettest spot of your yard. We need to avoid utilities and trees and kind of all that stuff. We also want to make sure it's not going to cause issues draining back to your house when it overflows. So there are some considerations with the location. We also need to investigate the soils, make sure that your property is set up for these rain gardens. And then we can kind of do some mathematic working with the size and the depth of the rain garden. All right, so talking first about the site selection. So there's this really cool feature on the EPA's website. You can do a home stormwater assessment, and you're pretty much just type in your address, kind of just designate out the area of your property, and it'll give you very detailed information. You can help calculate the amount of hard surface on your property, taking into your driveway, your house, that kind of stuff. It can tell you detailed information about your soils, calculate how much water is running off your property. So that's a really cool feature. So yep, if you just do EPA stormwater home assessment, or you follow that link there, that'll get you all set up. Another thing to consider is, we're trying to treat runoff from these hard surfaces. So calculating that is not always easy. If you want to be out there with a yardstick or a tape measure, you can go right ahead. Otherwise, there's some useful resources we have here online in the Cedar Valley. So if you're a Cedar Falls resident, you can go to the Cedar Falls GIS Online. This is a free service online tool that they provide. You can zoom into your home property and click up, designate out how much hard surface you have there. They have these useful measurement tools. So like I said, that does a really great job trying to do those rough calculations. If you happen to not live in Cedar Falls, but you're within Black Hawk County, you can use the Black Hawk County Assessor's website. You can type in your personal address, and then it'll come up with a detailed plan for your home, kind of just designating out the approximate measurements for it. So that'll help you kind of figure out the amount of roof area you have draining to each downspout. Okay, so another good idea to try and help you figure out how much area you have draining, go out during a rainstorm event, bust out your umbrella, and kind of just see how the water flows on your property. You know, do you have a hill or a slope where it's coming from your neighbor's house? Is your water running off down to your neighbor's? And kind of just see where this water is going. And especially if you have a nice sketch pad with those squares, that can really help you kind of designate out all the trees, the buildings and all that stuff, and kind of help you get a better idea of where might be a good place to put in a rain garden. So another important thing is to have your utilities marked, so that way you know you aren't going to be digging near your internet line or anything like that. Don't want to lose power for an evening. That's no fun either. So another thing is we want to be, because we're encouraging water to get into the ground, you don't want it right next to your house. So having it at least 10 feet away from your foundation, but ideally if you can have it 30 or 40 feet away from buildings, that's ideal. You also want it away from your sidewalk, from septic systems, and from private wells. So those are just some considerations on the siting of your rain garden. The next step is to figure out your soils. So there are some useful tools online. You don't even have to bust out a shovel. You can just use your mouse and try and do some research. So if you do a Google search for Web Soil Survey, you'll get linked to this service provided by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Go ahead and type in the address of your home, kind of designate out your area of the property, and it'll tell you the soil types that have been designated for your area. And then you can run a soils report, and it'll give you detailed information about each of the soil type within your property, its drainage, you know, how much or what the depth is, estimated depth is to the groundwater. Some very useful information. So like I said, that's a free service. Just go ahead and follow your mouse and let that do all the work. But you can't just rely on those online tools. At some point, you'll kind of need to get out, get your hands dirty, but that's the fun part of rain gardens, getting your hands dirty and doing some work. So there's a few different methods. Probably the best one for investigating your soils is a soil percolation test. And so this, you're pretty much just, I guess, yep, I should definitely highlight it again. Always before you dig, go ahead and get one call. It's a free service. They're out there marking your utility lines within 48 hours. So yep, I would say always do that first. But for the soil percolation test, you pretty much just dig a hole in the ground. You can use a small shovel, you can use a post hole digger. If you have an auger, you can go ahead and do that. You just want to try and go maybe 2 to 3 feet down, and that should give you a good idea of what you're looking at for soils. If you notice lots of clay, you know, if it's really tough to get in there, if there's lots of gravel in there or rocks, that can give you a good indication of what soil type you might be dealing with. Otherwise, if you see really black dirt or soil, I should say, we don't call it dirt, we call it soil. If you see nice black soil, looks healthy, that's usually a really good sign you have a good site for a rain garden. So just the simple test you'll do is over a couple day period, you'll go ahead and fill your hole with 12 inches of water and just see how quickly that water goes down through the hole. So you'll kind of just do some notes and calculations. It's not like you have to set your lawn chair up and watch it the whole time. You can go out and check every few hours and just see how quickly that water is going down, because that's going to tell you how quickly the water is going to go down in your rain garden. And once you know that, I would say that can help tell you what you might be looking at for different types of rain gardens, how big it might need to be if you need to oversize it and stuff like that. So sizing your rain garden, that's an important thing. I think that's the most common thing. How big does my rain garden need to be? And it depends. is always the answer. Depends on how big your roof is, how much the downspouts coming through there. Based on your soil type, your soil percolation test, it can kind of tell you there's a little bit of wiggle room. So if you're kind of restricted on how much room you have for a rain garden, you can maybe kind of dig it a little deeper and create more of a ponding depth. Otherwise, if you have a wide open area in your backyard you're wanting to devote to a rain garden, you can go shallower and kind of size it up that way. But that's where your percolation rates will kind of help determine about the percentage from your roof downspout that you'll need. So 10% of your roof drainage area is pretty average for what we size for a rain garden. So yep, if you have 500 square feet draining through one downspout, you'd be looking at a 50 square foot rain garden. So that's pretty standard there. But the new rain garden guide has this wonderful new calculator. You can actually go ahead and type in what you're finding for your roof. So your roof drainage area, how much water's coming off from the yard, and you can kind of just type these numbers in there, and then it'll spit out the results for what you need for how big your rain garden would need to be for it. So like I said, it saves a lot of the guesswork, making sure you're doing things right when you can just type in what you're able to find there. So I'll go ahead and highlight that, yep, there's two different types of rain gardens. If you have really good high quality soils, good soil percolation tests, lots of good organic matter in there, you can just do a basic rain garden. So this is one where we rely on the existing soils in there. We pretty much just dig out the bowl for the rain garden. We'll maybe bring in a little bit of amended soils. Otherwise, we just rototill what's already there, add some mulch on it, throw our prairie plants in there, and then we're good to go. If you're fine through with your soils investigations, you maybe have more clays in there and it doesn't quite drain into the ground as good, we might need to get a little creative with it and do something called an enhanced rain garden. And so that involves a little bit more work. Like I say, you're digging a little deeper, you're maybe bringing in more higher quality soils in there, kind of amended the soils there. And then we usually have to do some type of overflow structure. So that's a perforated subdrain with a non-perforated inlet on it, and then just directing that overflow water elsewhere. Because the goal with rain gardens, we only want water in there for a short period of time above ground. We want it to work its way into the ground. We don't want it there for more than 24 hours. That way we don't have any issues with mosquitoes. So these overflow structures help ensure that's the case. Okay, so a lot of people, I don't anticipate that there's too many landscapers here on the line. So don't worry if you never landscaped your yard before. There are wonderful ideas and options out there for what you can do for your rain garden. They come pre-labeled with all the plant species you can have, so a nice diversity of plants, shapes and sizes. Because like I said, the rain garden, this is really the cool part of the rain garden, customizing it to fit your home where you want it and making it work for you. So you can use lots of natives, you can use fewer natives, you can get shrubs in there, lots of different options. And all these ideas are included in the newly updated rain garden guide. Okay, so knowing what you're getting into with the rain garden is really important. And another new feature of the guide is a material list. So to help you figure out how much topsoil you need, how much compost you need, how much mulch you're going to need, how many plants you're going to need. Those are probably the four most common aspects of the rain garden, and coming up with a budget to make sure you properly set enough funds aside for it is really important too. And there's lots of ways to wiggle around with this. You can choose getting plant plugs that are maybe only 3 inches tall, and that can help save you money. Otherwise, if you have more money to spend, you can buy larger gallon size plants. If you're concerned about how much the mulch is going to cost, the city of Cedar Falls and city of Waterloo have free mulch available that you can utilize in your rain gardens. So that's some of the ways you can maybe cut the cost corners here. But like I said, the new guide kind of helps you with that, figure out how much of each material you're going to need there. All right, so yeah, have your plan, you have your materials, you're good to go. Here comes the magic day. It's time to install the rain garden. Well, it comes through with 4 easy steps. First, you're just going to lay out the area for the rain garden. Make sure you measure it. You know, having some spray paint or some markers are really good to help visualize. Make sure you're happy with it. Then comes the wonderful work of busting out a shovel and getting your hands dirty, excavating out the rain garden. Usually going 12 inches is kind of the average for most rain gardens. You have to do that enhanced rain garden, you might have to be digging deeper. So once you have your rain garden all excavated out, then you're going to come back with adding those higher quality soils in there. You need to rototill those together. Then you go ahead and add the mulch and put the plants in, and then you end up with a beautiful garden like this. And so I'd say a lot of times, you know, if you have a couple people helping you, you can get a rain garden knocked out in a day, no problem. Otherwise, you have to just set aside a full weekend just to make sure you have enough time for it. So a few features of rain gardens are really important to make sure it's going to be successful for you. Having the rain garden level is really important. So each step of the way, when you're excavating, when you're adding the materials back in, making sure it's level is just going to ensure that all the rain garden is utilized and that the water gets a chance to infiltrate. And so I don't know about you, but there's not many places out there that have perfectly level yards. So there's a few different options you can do for making sure your rain garden is level. A lot of times we can use some of the excavated soils that we dig out in the rain garden, creating a berm. That's a good way to utilize the features there. Other times you can do retaining walls. So whether you do something more artistic with a rock or used traditional block pavers, those can really help if you have significant slope on there. And like I said, that's just adding to the enhancement of the rain garden and making it more of an attractive feature there. You have a couple options for connecting your downspouts. So a common one for a lot of folks, you know, who don't want water traveling above ground is to run buried tile lines. So you can get these from your local hardware stores. You know, they usually come in 3 or 4 inch tile diameters, and then you're good to go. So a little bit more work with the digging, but then that way you can mow, you know, put grass back over it, mow it just like you normally would, and still have your landscaped rain garden. Another option, if you do it closer to your home, is you can do a little rock chute. So this one you just kind of excavate out just a few inches down, fill a little bit back up with rock to help slow the water down, and just kind of create a nice channel for that water to flow to the rain garden. So either one of these you want, they both work. It's just the kind of that personal preference there. Another important feature about those rain gardens to consider, you know, that overflow. If you have to go with an enhanced rain garden, making sure you get that set up. So that's where the water's gonna, if the rain garden fills up, it has an overflow option. Otherwise, if you don't have to go an enhanced rain garden, you can kind of just do another rock chute. That way, if the rain garden fills up with too much water, it has a place to go. So directing in a certain area is important as well. Another thing, the inlets of the rain gardens, it's important. You don't want all your plants and mulch getting washed out. So sometimes armoring the inlet's important. And you can just kind of go ahead and put some rock there. You can use flagstones, whatever you want, and that's going to help dissipate that water. Like I said, you kind of don't get that washout happen. And then you have making sure you kind of designate where that overflow is, and having that clearly defined. That's just going to help with that water flow. Another wonderful feature, another way to customize your rain garden is your prairie plants. So you don't just have to use prairie plants. There are non-native plants here that also work well in rain gardens. And so, you know, these are plants, there's a few dozen plants we've kind of identified that work well in the soil types of rain gardens. But some of the personal considerations you're gonna have to do is the amount of sunlight your plants are gonna get. You know, if you have a shaded backyard where you're putting your rain garden, you're gonna have to choose more of those shaded plants. We always recommend doing a diverse plant setup layout for your rain garden, just because that way they have something there blooming year round. You're helping out our local pollinators. You're making it more attractive. We also recommend including some grass species. Just having that diversity just really helps to ensure your rain garden is going to function better. So like I said, you can check out the rain garden guide, see all these pretty pictures, and help figure out what plants you want for your rain garden there. But then the big question is, where do you get these plants? So you can go to the local store. You can go to these our local nurseries, support those staff, and pick up some of your plants. But one thing that we definitely recommend as a consideration is not all the plants that are at the big box stores. It might say it's milkweed, but it's not necessarily Iowa milkweed. It might be the Pennsylvania strain or the Texan strain or somewhere else. So we always recommend that folks try and look for Iowa certified, locally sourced native prairie plants. Those are ones that are adapted for our soils. Our pollinators and insect species here are adapted to them, and they're adapted to our climates here as well. So that's where you're going to have the highest success for your plant species. So these are some nurseries here in and around the state that we recommend because they do have those locally sourced Iowa certified native prairie plants. So you can go ahead, I would highly recommend going out and checking out their websites. They have a plethora of information. Some of them do have mock rain garden designs, or they have rain garden sets already broken out for you. So they really try and make it a lot easy and add a lot of those considerations for rain gardens. And you know what, if this sounds too much for you, you don't have a green thumb, you don't want to bust out the shovel, that's just fine too. We do have some wonderful local landscaping companies that do design and install rain gardens. So you can go ahead and contact any one of these local landscaping companies. They can come out, try and assess your site, ensure that you have a good option for a rain garden, come up with the design, give you a cost estimate, and if you approve, they can proceed with the work and make these wonderful rain gardens happen. So like I said, whether you want to do one yourself or you want someone else to do it, there's no wrong way. But that's what's going to affect your cost of what your bottom line is going to be. These landscapers, they're professional contractors. They do great work. So if you want a really good looking, attractive rain garden right out of the box, that's probably who you should maybe consider going with. Otherwise, if you don't care so much, if it's the most attractive thing in the world, you're willing to get your hands dirty and maybe save some money, that's when you can kind of try and DIY it yourself and come out with a rain garden. So a good average cost for a rain garden is about $15 a square foot. But like I said, there's lots of ways to either decrease or increase your cost to make it fit your budget there. And I will say, based on that budget, there are local resources here. There are financial incentives for homeowners who do want to install rain gardens. So if you live within the Dry Run Creek watershed in Cedar Falls, you can get financial assistance up to 75% cost share for conservation practices, including rain gardens. Otherwise, all residents in Black Hawk County are eligible through a program called REAP, Resource Enhancement Protection. You can get 50% cost share. And then there's also low interest loans available. So that way you're maybe not paying all the cost up front and stretch it out over a few years. So for any of those programs, you can feel free to contact the local Soil and Water Conservation District office, and they can help get you set up. And I'll have that information here towards the end here. But a couple last things to consider, rain gardens, it's not just once you install it, it's good to go. There is some work to do with it. And the new rain garden guide kind of has those detailed maintenance plans. Like I said, it's not significantly more than what you'd be doing if you just had basic landscaping in your backyard. So, you might need to add mulch, you might need to weed it out, especially those first couple of years. Adding water those first few months is really important. But then once the rain garden's established, your maintenance load should decrease over time if you set it up properly. So just trying to sum things up here, a few things on why people should install rain gardens. This is an enhancement to your yard. This is a great way to show that conservation matters to you, that water quality matters to you, and you can do it in a very attractive way. And like I said, there's that water quality benefit. You're not only helping your yard, you're helping the entire community and doing your own little part on your own little yard. But then it has widespread benefits. You're helping the community, you're helping our local pollinators who are in need of our help these days. And so all around, it's coming back to our Iowa native heritage and really kind of bringing it full circle and helping out. So if you're interested about this, I would say that you should check out iowastormwater.org. You can download lots of great resources on there. You can download that rain garden guide. But then if you're interested in any other conservation projects, they have wonderful brochures there as well. So a wealth of information. Otherwise, you can also go to Cedar Falls City Hall, and they have these displayed right outside the engineering office. So you can go ahead, check those out. And then there's a couple upcoming learning opportunities if you're interested. Next week, there'll be an in-depth rain garden training. I'm just giving you a crash course in it. But if you're really interested in rain gardens, you can go ahead and register for this free rain garden training. I think I might have heard that registration is full. We have over 250 people signed up for this, but you can still register for it. And I think their hope is to try and make it available as a recorded webinar, or maybe provide information for folks who are interested. So like I said, go ahead and check out iowastormwater.org. You can get linked to this information. And then coming up in a few weeks here, the wonderful panelists I'm joined with this evening are also helping out with the Cedar Valley Community Conservation Workshop. So that will also be a virtual Zoom meeting here scheduled for Thursday, February 25th in the evening. It's going to be a really big crash course and a diverse amount of topics, including rain gardens, rain barrels, but also talk about sustainable gardening, for being good neighbor Iowa, backyard composting, just sustainable houses and what you can do to make your house energy efficient. So I would definitely recommend go ahead and check that out. You can go ahead and get registered for that. That's also free and open to the public. And then there's prize drawing giveaways for attendees that come to that as well. All right, well, I definitely feel like I've talked enough. So we'll go ahead and take any questions that folks may have. And yep, I'll leave my contact information up there in case you have any other questions you want to submit our way.
So we've received one question asking about, is there a rule of thumb of how big or small you should go, like for example, with acreage?
So, yep, that's a great question. And usually we've installed rain gardens, I'd say probably up to about 200 square feet. Getting much larger than that, we might be looking at something else, either an enhanced rain garden or what's called a bioretention cell. Maria had a photo of that, the recently installed one at Clay Street Park. And, and that's draining multiple acres of land coming through that bioretention cell. That one's really big. And these biocells, they kind of look the same like rain gardens on top, but underneath they have a lot more engineering. They're digging down 3 or 4 feet, adding lots of rock in there, more amended soils. So like I said, yeah, if you have a significant drainage area coming through your area, you might look at an enhanced rain garden or a bioretention cell. But otherwise, yep, if you have maybe 2,000 square feet kind of draining to your rain garden, that's just fine. You get much bigger than that, that's when you might look at one of those other options instead.
All right. If we don't have any other questions, do we have any other questions? All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I just want to thank the panelists, Josh and Ria, and the help Felix from Green, Iowa. And just to let you know,